Okay, guys, this is 9.7. Let's talk about the beginnings of the Cold War. So we already talked about in our last video with the Truman Doctrine in 1947 and the promise to help any country fight communism. And this was part of our containment policy. If you put something in a container, it's keeping it from spreading out into other areas. So this was an effort to keep communism from spreading to other countries through economic, political, and military power. Already talked about the Marshall Plan of 1948. This was the European Recovery Program. And this was an American initiative to aid Western Europe after World War II. The U.S. gave about $13 billion to help rebuild Western Europe. And after the war, during these peacetime alliances, we get NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, and its goal was to keep the Soviet Union from spreading communism throughout Europe. And then there's also the Warsaw Pact in 1955, formed by the USSR in response to the formation of NATO. So here's America and Western Europe over here creating NATO, saying that we're going to stop the spread of communism, whatever it takes, and we are not going to let it get past where it is now. And then you get the USSR on the other side saying, well, if you're going to form an alliance with NATO, then we're just going to create the Warsaw Pact and we are going to work against you. We've already talked about the Korean War. This was one of the first big events of the Cold War. So if you need to rehash the Korean War, jump to the previous video, refresh it a little bit. And the effects of that war, the Korean War, is it increased military spending exponentially. Military commitments increased worldwide, and future presidents send military into combat without congressional approval. We get into a big issue in Vietnam because of this. The Cold War is essentially an arms race. It's called the Cold War because there was no actual fighting between the Soviet Union and the United States. It was more so just a rapid buildup of technology and ammunition and firepower. In 1949, the USSR successfully tested an atomic bomb. Now they are on the same page with America in its Manhattan Project. In 1952, the U.S. one-upped them by creating the hydrogen bomb. President Eisenhower said that it was a bigger bang for the buck. Then we get into a space race with the Soviet Union. In 1957, the Soviets launched Sputnik, the first satellite to enter outer space, and America is sitting here like, hold up, the Soviet Union is outdoing us with their technology. And so the National Defense Education Act was put forth in order to further progress math and science education, and the National Aeronautics and Space Administration was created during this time as well. We are trying to play catch up with the Soviet Union during the space race. All right, the Cold War at home. We get the Hollywood 10. This is a group of left-wing writers and producers that refused to answer questions and asserted their Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. We also get the second Red Scare during this time, the fear of communism both inside and outside of the country. The second Red Scare is really fueled by McCarthyism. This was started by Senator Joseph McCarthy of Wisconsin. He asserted that the State Department was completely overrun with communist agents and that no one was safe to trust. This time is plagued with extreme and reckless charges of communists. It's the idea that even your neighbor who mows people's lawns could be a communist spy. People lost jobs from accusations. Their reputations were ruined. It's very comparable to the Salem witch trials, and where anybody could just have baseless accusations, and that had really, really significant consequences. The hearings during this period were highly televised, they were highly publicized, and the public was really racked with this fear on a daily basis of communism because of these accusations and the media coverage that was put into it.